Spearatics by Sideline Sports. We were goofing off pretty bad before we started the show. There was this just ridiculous noise. It kept popping up and kept popping up over and over again. It was pissing me off, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. But hopefully I found it and I shut it off. But tonight's show, we're going to be obviously talking about Florida State and the Ragin Cajuns. We're going Saturday. Kickoff is at 12. Unfortunately, this is not televised on national television. It's not going to be on ESPN. It's not going to be on ACC Network.
I will say that you can get it on the ESPN app. So
we're the Miami Hurricanes this week.
Yeah.
Well, when you play a team like the Ragin Cajuns, I mean, the Ragin Cajuns were supposed to have a decent year, and they came out like the Miami Hurricanes and just haven't done anything. So they're pretty much expecting a wipeout from Florida State to just take care of business. But before we get started in that, everybody, this show is brought to you by Game Day Vodka. Game Day Vodka is an American-owned, an American-made, an American-distilled, an American-bottled, and an American-sold company. Their vodka is the new age of vodka. It is distilled over 6 times. It creates it to be the smoothest vodka on the market, depending on what country it's in every country, no matter what you do. I want to congratulate Spearatics, the show, all the co-hosts, everybody that helps make this possible, my wife, everybody in my family that makes it possible for me to continue to do this. The show was able to be monetized on YouTube as of today. So if you go back and watch the videos, you will have ads and stuff now, but we do appreciate everybody's support from the fans. I appreciate everybody that watches and listens to the show. So do me a favor and keep clicking on the YouTube link. Keep going and watching on YouTube because, like I've told y'all before, Facebook is absolutely no help whatsoever. They don't pay you anything for doing this. And it's not that I'm looking to get rich off of doing Florida State content. It's the fact of there's a lot of work that goes into this content. There's a lot of research and stuff that all of us do. So any little bit by you just watching helps would be great. There's a couple of announcements that we've got before we start the show as well. Which everybody should have seen this by now, but if you haven't, Jordan Travis is a semifinalist for the Davy O'Brien Award. Then you've got Trayshawn Ward for the Burlsworth Trophy semifinalist. You've got, I don't want to say this wrong, but the Broyles Award nominee for Coach Atkins. So how's that pronounced? What? Broyles Award. Then you've got Jason Witten Man of the Year Award semifinalist and Dylan Gibbons. So a kudos to all of those guys for absolutely killing it. And then you've got what is it? I don't know how to say this trophy award either. Warfel Trophy semifinalist and Dylan Gibbons as well. Well, if they wouldn't have made the edit so stupid, you could read the letters they tried to put in there. But anyways, I couldn't even tell that was a W. I couldn't. I had no idea what the hell that said. So anyways, congratulations to all of the Florida State team that's up for those awards and their semifinalists. And we more than likely, if ESPN has anything to do with giving those awards, we won't get any of them. It took Charlie Ward being an absolute beast to get the Heisman Trophy. And then do y'all realize that since 1993, Charlie Ward has been the Heisman Trophy winner? And it took until 2022 for him to appear in the Heisman House. And they didn't give him one sentence to say in the Heisman House. Not one line. He's just sitting there getting out of the damn pool before a floating gator comes up. Are you serious? Like, I've yet to see Jameis Winston. Haven't seen Chris Winkie. I guess we'll see them in 2042 because it took you from 93 to 2022 to get Charlie Ward in there. But by all means, is there all and every Alabama Heisman winner in there? But anyways, moving on. Florida State, I guess we don't need that that recognition of having 3 Heisman winners. We're just little old Florida State, in Tallahassee, where it's absolutely impossible to get to. You got to get on a train, then first airplane, then a train. You get in a car, and then you end up on a buggy and a horse to get to Tallahassee from what everybody tries to make it out to be. But anyways, we're going to move on into the show. Florida State takes on the Ragin Cajuns. Are they an FCS team?
No, they're a Sun Belt team.
Okay. So, see, that's how much I know about the Ragin Cajuns, everybody. I do expect Florida State. I was talking to Chip about this a little bit earlier. I do expect Florida State to play their starters the first half, maybe 3/4 of the way into the second quarter. Unfortunately, we have been told that there is a flu bug going around. And from what Coach Norwell said, we're not going to be missing any guys come Saturday as of now. But y'all know how the flu works. If one's got it, 20 end up having it, 35 end up having it, and then 85 it's just, we'll see. Hopefully everybody stays away from the guys that are sick and it doesn't continue to spread. Luckily this week, I'd much rather deal with the flu this week than next week when we got to play the Gators. So if we got to get it out of the way, let's get it out of the way this week. Taylor, is there anybody on this Ragin' Cajuns teams that we should be just fearful of that could open up a game for the Ragin' Cajuns?
There's some guys there. I mean, their offense is kind of a tick below average, I guess you could say, in like adjusted numbers and everything. Woolridge is a guy who was kind of their backup coming into the season, kind of got started into that role halfway through the season. You're seeing him play pretty well. I mean, he's got 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Pretty solid. They do have a really good receiver in Michael Jefferson. That's a guy you need to worry about. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's actually from Mobile, Alabama. He's a really good kid. I think he's got about 660 receiving yards this season. So that is something to kind of monitor. Really, the rest of the receivers they have, I don't think anybody else has over about 250 yards. So that guy really stands out in terms of that. Running back wise, they kind of run a committee approach. I know Chris Smith is a guy that a lot of the Ragin' Cajuns experts talk about. He's got about 486 yards, 2 touchdowns. They got a bigger back in Terrence Williams, who I think is going to be more their goal line back type of situation. But he has about 300 yards. So really, they've been an okay offense, but when they get in the red zone, and this is where I think my score prediction is going to come into play a little bit later, they're a terrible, terrible, terrible red zone offense. They're 119th in the FBS, 74% when they get down there. It doesn't come easy. And I know everybody talks about Florida State's red zone offense and how they played. I mean, they've actually gotten better in the last couple of weeks. I think they're up to 81% now in their conversion rate. I think that kind of helps when you got running the ball efficiently, maybe not running the Philly special on 4th down, but I think they've done a really good job in terms of just keeping it simple and keeping things there. Defensively, I mean, they get after the quarterback very well. They got 25 sacks. I believe Florida State has 29 sacks on the season, so they're not that far off. They got a couple of guys there. Zion Hill-Green is a guy they really like. He's got 7 sacks on the season. He is definitely a guy you have to watch out for, especially if you're looking for kind of that letdown matchup after the last couple of games that we've had. It's something you really have to monitor there. I mean, overall, they don't really have a great pass defense. It's just not that great. They got a safety that's pretty good, and Trahan that has 4 interceptions on the year. It's just something I have to watch out for here, and you never want to take these games for granted, of course, because we lost to Jacksonville State the year before. But, it's just something you really have to think about. Louisiana Lafayette's coming into the game 5-5. They may not want to put all their eggs in this basket because they're playing Texas State next week, who is really, really injured, and they actually have a solid chance to get bowl eligibility. Maybe you don't need to go so hard and put all your players in there. Not saying that it would matter either way against Florida State. They're a 24-point favorite for a reason. But I think this Louisiana Lafayette team is solid, but they're not the 12-1 team from last season with Levi Lewis and all those guys on offense that were really explosive. And Billy Napier is going to Florida, took a couple of guys with him. I just don't think it's a game that you really have to monitor as closely as year before. Now, if we played with Levi Lewis this year, might have something to worry about. But I just think that this offense and this defense is just middle of the road, and Florida State should get the job done pretty easily there.
And I'm not skipping over Chip, everybody. James is at well, I don't know if he's at the event, but he has events going on, and he's able to jump on here shortly. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about what we should be looking for in the Florida State Louisiana game, and then that way, if he needs to get off, he can get back to his events. We all are as busy as you could possibly think most of the time, so everybody does a great job of taking their time to come and make sure they get on the show. So I'm going to let James talk a little bit about it. That way, if he needs to go, he can jump off. James, what are your thoughts on what Florida State needs to do in this game? Just before you came on, there was a little bit of concern with the flu bug going around with the Florida State Seminoles, but Coach Norvell did say that he didn't expect anybody to miss any playing time. So, but take that as you will. It's the flu, but let everybody know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to stay super hydrated, and why it's important for them to be able to take the steps that I talked about last week. The biggest thing is continuing to show and assert dominance upon weaker opponents. So you did it against Miami. You did it against Georgia Tech. You took another step against Miami. You took a huge step last week as well. So now what you got to do is do it again this week. I'm not saying that they should only score 3 points like you did against Syracuse and Miami, but you definitely need to make sure that this is a 3 to 4 touchdown game. A game that's well decided midway through the second quarter so that you can start to rotate guys in. You can get a Tate Rodemaker getting some significant minutes. You can get A.J. Duffy his last – you got about 3 or 4 guys who are on their 4th game right here. So, let them be able to get significant minutes to help aid in their development, because the only way you get better in college is to play. It's not one of those things where it's like, everybody acts like there's some secret sauce. The secret sauce is actually getting on the field and being able to be productive. So that's really where you have to get through. And we should be able to do this with our basic offense. At this point, everybody should be feeling themselves. Jordan Travis is on everybody's list. Johnny Wilson and Trey Benson both have some very marked and measurable numbers that are important. 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver. Both of them, it's not out of the realm of possibility within the next 2 to 3 games that they should be able to get that. But obviously this game is going to be a easier matchup than it would be for them to do it against Florida in a much more competitive nature, or even a bowl game to where we need to go to. Plus, that's what Florida State's mindset is. You'll have everybody and their mom the next 2 weeks. You'll have the Orange Bowl that will be there because you never know what's going to happen. Gator Bowl, different representation is going to be there. And what you have to do is show that you are the big ticket. You're the biggest show in town. And I think that's what's on the market. We used to call it play for per diem. And that's kind of what these guys have to do is play for per diem, play for moving up in draft stocks. There's a lot of things that are on the table for these guys to do that very few thought would be there for right now.
Absolutely. Chip, James, before there was a question that one of the YouTube subscribers asked. James, how did your team do on Monday night? I would prefer you to speak on that than me give them the update. So give them that update real quick, and then Chip jump into this Florida State Ragin Cajuns game.
Well, unfortunately, I'll be at the Ragin Cajuns game. I love Florida State, but we lost. We performed well. We just, there was some things where maybe questionable calls with the referee, but I always say don't leave the game in the hands of the referee. We had our chance. We had plenty of chances. We have yet to play a full game offensively, but what I will say is that it's a tremendous amount of talent that's young on this team. 2024, 2025 should be some fun years. There's a lot of elite prospects, and I don't say that because I'm a homer. Ask any of the Mandarin kids. I have no problem telling kids when they're not any good. But we have some guys that are highly sought after, and I saw some really, really good things. We got a chance to play against Goldie Lawrence, Florida State commit. I've talked about my thoughts on him as an overall prospect inside of fifth quarter. You can go check out our ticker for there. I try not to talk bad about anybody. He is a Division I prospect. I'm not sure about where he matches up at wide receiver, considering what we have coming back in the class we have. But you can definitely see from an athletic standpoint, he is a Division I guy. But he wasn't a guy that you would know. I got 2 running backs that aren't Division I guys. They're college guys. They're just their size doesn't make them Division I guys more than likely. That were way more effective in that game than he was. And they had a running back number 2, who I don't know what his name is, but you can go look on Max Preps. But that kid had a game. That was a lot of man. He ran extremely hard. I was very impressed with what he did. But we're a team. I believe our average age is 15 and a half. And we were district champs, and we were in the playoffs, and we should have moved to the second round. We were winning 28-24, if I remember, 28-23. They scored on a contract. I put up the video of the fumble, but it was reversed. So, but yeah, I love it. I love coaching high school. I love the energy that comes in it, and it's the most purest form of the game. Because once you get to college and pro, it's a job. So, but I'm proud of my guys, and we'll be back next year.
Appreciate it. Chip, jump into it. What do you think about this Louisiana Ragin Cajuns team?
This is a game that definitely I don't think you're going to see much Jordan Travis. As bad as I want Trey Benson to hit 1,000 yards rushing, I don't see him getting much playing time in this game past probably midway through the second quarter. I look for this to be a heavy game of Tate Rodemaker, AJ Duffy, Rodney and CJ toting the rock, and some of our young receivers and stuff getting to step in. Alluding to what Taylor and James said, this is where the young guys are going to be able to step up on defense. Do I see us keeping the streak alive of no touchdowns allowed in the game by the defense? That's going to be up to the backups. Louisiana Lafayette is not a team I see that I would even be concerned about against our backups, because you go to Florida State for a reason. You get a scholarship to Florida State because you're a hell of an athlete and you're better than your competition. I'm anxious to see what these young guys do, and hey, I'll look for this to be AJ to finally throw his first collegiate touchdown.
Well, obviously we're going to get moved into what we all think the score predictions are going to be. It's just really hard for me to have I've been so close the past 3 games that I'm extremely scared in this one to say that I'm going to be right, because I don't know how long our stars are going to be in the game. I don't know if we're going to be there 1 and 2 quarters or a quarter and a half, 1 and 3 quarters. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. But I still think because of what we have, even behind the starters, we should still be able to score on this team. We should still be able to put points on the board, maybe not as quick or as many, but we should still be able to put up solid drives and score some points. So I'm going to move straight into it. And I've went against Florida State for 2 straight weeks, not believing that they were going to hold a team to 3 points. I just would figure that they would give up a touchdown somewhere. And just out of pride, not allowing in this last game to allow someone to score on the 1-yard line. I'm not going against them this week. I think that we end up winning this game 42-3. I don't think Louisiana's going to score because I believe that the 2 teams that didn't score against us are a better offensive unit. And I think we brought in what did against Miami that we brought. Everybody felt like we brought in our backup guys too quick, just a little bit too quick. So I'm gonna go with 42-3, Florida State. VJ Sierra put up 46-13, and everybody that's in the chat, put up your score predictions. I'll call them out, and I'll put it this way: whoever gets the closest, not the closest, if you get the score prediction correctly, I'll send you something Spearatics wise and Florida State wise that I've got plenty of things. Just trust me, it'll be good. I'll send you something if you get the score prediction correctly. Taylor or James, whichever one, if y'all want to give your score prediction real quick, you can. And James, anytime that you need to jump off, man, feel free. I don't want you to have to stick around when you got stuff going on.
I think it's going to be – I'm with you, Chris, and I don't want to be disrespectful to our guys, man. It's just
right.
It's just really difficult to like. That's why when I was listening to some of the other, actually, let me rephrase that because I'd be lying if I told you I listened to a lot of the other ones. I was listening to what other people told me, what other chats or other message boards or podcasts were saying about how this defense, like one guy said, I think we're not better than Tulsa or something like that. And I'm just like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to pitch a shutout, how hard it is to hold a team under 3 scores. I mean, like, no matter how bad they are, especially when you're playing your 2s and your 3s, because those guys don't get, especially your 3s, they just don't get the reps that the 1s and the 2s get. So just to give people an idea, so every period in a football practice is 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And typically what happens from an offensive standpoint, you get 4 plays that you're going to install. And the 1s get the 4 plays and the 2s get the 4 plays, and that takes you about roughly 5 minutes. And if the 1s have to continue to get repeats, then the 2s don't get their 4 plays. So like that, let alone the 3s. So that's kind of why I say that. But I'm going to go with a 45 to like 13 type score. I believe they get a touchdown and maybe 2 BS field goals, but with the hope and the idea that our defense is playing very, very well. So like it could very well so be 1 score. But I do think Mike and offense and Coach Alex Atkins have to continue to not have periods where the offense just slows down. I would just really love to see scores or some, like at least in the first 3 quarters or 2.5 quarters, where we're literally out there scoring in some capacity on every drop or within scoring range. That's when you know you're really cooking with fish grease. So I'm going to go 45-17. Offense looks very well tuned. Defense looks really, really well outside of 45-13, except for where they have to like get some 2s and 3s in.
Taylor, you want to go next on your score prediction?
Yeah, so I mentioned Florida State is a 24-point favorite. The over-under right now is at about 52. We talked about it. It's a noon kickoff. What happens in a noon kickoff? You get kind of complacent at times. You get kind of sluggish, and you kind of feel like, okay, we can just kind of breeze through this game. It's a Sun Belt opponent that's 5-5. You know, they're not really playing for much. They might be playing for bowl eligibility next week. And I feel as though there's going to be some instances in this game where the play calling is going to be very vanilla. We play Florida next week. We're not trying to put too much on film. I think you're going to see them running the ball efficiently with Trey Benson. I think they're going to get a lot of Trayshawn Ward to kind of get him acclimated back into the game. So I think that could be another situation there. And I think Florida State's going to come out to this game, and maybe Jordan Travis may have about 175 yards passing or something to that nature. I don't think he's going to air it out a lot. I think it's just going to be a lot of ground and pound. Get A.J. Duffy in there, get Tate Rodemaker in there. I think there's going to be a lot of backups in this game by about the end of the third quarter. And I think this is going to be a situation where, as though Florida State has been holding opponents, within 3 points the last couple of weeks, and they've been outscoring people very well, I think this is a game where Louisiana, I don't want to say Lafayette, is actually going to be having a game where they might score 10 points. I have it as a 41-10 kind of game. I think this is a situation where it may be 38-3 at the end of 3, and you're going into the fourth quarter. You're having all your backups in. They may have pride enough to stop them on the goal line because their red zone offense is pretty bad. But I just think this is a situation where maybe they might have a busted coverage or something like that happen. Just something out of the ordinary with the second string. I don't think a first string, especially with us not allowing many explosive plays. I think that's very important in this game where their offense is lackadaisical. They're like 56th in the country. So, there is room for improvement for this team, but I think they're going to save all their room for improvement and their plays and everything like that to the Florida game where it's going to be highly anticipated. It's a rivalry game. And if you haven't got your tailgate tickets, be sure to do so because we're going to be actually showing up and showing out in that. So it's going to be very exciting to see, but it's going to be something where Florida State fans are going to look back at this game and say, okay, we're going to get prepared for our biggest rival coming up the next week.
I agree. Chip, what are your thoughts on the score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going between 2 scores. I mean, for us, the score's the same. It changes for the opponents. The 2 scores I'm thinking of are 42-6 and 42-9, and it's field goals. They're not. They again do not give up a touchdown because, like Taylor has said, their red zone offense is freaking horrible. And I honestly look for our starters, especially on offense, to be hanging out watching the backups after the second quarter. So hopefully we do see I want to see what CJ Campbell looks like with 10 or 15 carries. I want to see what Rodney looks like with 10 or 15 carries. And we get the ball first and goal to one, like James says, give the ball to the damn fullback.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Seeing how that we're all close in score prediction this week, I hope mine stands up. We just don't let them score more than 3. But there was a few people that dropped score predictions. I will write all of these down, and if one of y'all are correct, I will send you whatever it is that I decide to send you. But it'll be good enough. Maybe it's a tailgate ticket. Hell, I don't know.
So I was going to bring this up too, because I know James made a good point about some of the bowl representatives being here for this game. Think about draft scouts that are coming in for this game. You talk about Fabian Lovett and also Jamie Robinson got their Senior Bowl invites, and that's kind of a low-key kind of thing to let you know that they're announcing for the NFL draft pretty much as it kind of goes. And that could be an opportunity where both of those guys really put a stamp on where they're going to be coming and getting selected. And I think that's very important, especially with some of these guys and these recruits that are coming in and seeing those guys at a high level. I think could be really efficient because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you're an NFL draft pick and you're highly drafted at that point, why wouldn't you want to come to Florida State? And I mean, that's just a big opportunity for them. And I think it's very important for some of those guys, specifically Fabian Levitt with his son. And I think that's very important to kind of get his opportunities there, being able to go to the next level and kind of support his family as he goes throughout that process. But just very excited to see some of those guys. And it's kind of bittersweet because these guys have really done a good job this season, specifically Fabian Levitt, for example. He missed 5 games this season, came back really strong. And I think it's just kind of a testament to his adversity through all these problems that he's had.
Well, like we've talked about in previous shows, that we think that the best pitch or the biggest pitch that matters the most is what pitch Mike Norvell and his staff gives to the guys that could return. More importantly, the ones that could leave. We do have a few that are gone regardless. This is their last year. They cannot come back. And it's so hard for me to sit here and say that I hope Norvell gets like the Jared Verse back. Like, I want Jared Verse back. Being a fan, do I ever want him to come back? But, man, if it's a top 10 draft pick, I just don't see it. Like, I hate giving people – like, someone asked me, hey, man, be realistic. We're not getting these guys back if they're in the – look, I'm going to tell you that NIL has changed the game, but it hasn't changed it enough for a kid to get told they're going to go top 15 in the draft to go, hey, if y'all give me $150,000, I'll stick around. That's not even close to touching what your rookie contract for the NFL looks like. And it just doesn't make sense because if you're already in the top 15, you're not going to grow that much stock in the draft if you stick another year. Now, if you're a 3rd round guy, 4th round guy, I could see you wanting to come back and try to get your stock up. But if you're being talked about in the 1st and 2nd round, I don't think those guys are coming back. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not Coach Norvell, but
yeah. And I'll address this too because somebody brought this point. I was about to bring it up, but with Johnny Wilson being the ambassador for Rising Spear, that's also another example as well. I mean, he's not going to sign with Rising Spear and be an ambassador for them for 3 games and then be able to leave after next season. That would be kind of a dumb investment on Rising Spear for that regard. And it just kind of goes to show, I mean, really,
James has got other ideas.
I don't know if you would definitely because you definitely don't know if he's going to be a high draft pick at that point. It's taking a risk on him as, with his drop injury or his drop issues, his injuries with his hamstring also. I think there's some risk kind of associated with him. So I think it is a smart investment to kind of assume that he's not going to be draft eligible in that regard, because I think there is so many question marks coming to this. He is a very talented kid. He's 6'7", is a variable red zone threat. But I just don't know if it's enough to say, okay, he's a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick. I don't even know if he's that at this point.
I'm not saying he's not. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying he's leaving. I don't know. I'm just saying like Jared Verse just signed a deal for a car, and if Jared asked me, James, I'd be like, son, like go get paid. Like go get your money, man. Like I want you to come back, but get your money. But I think it's it just really all depends. Like these guys will do their due diligence. They should submit their draft eligibility, not draft eligibility, what their grade is, and 4 teams will look at it and give their idea of if they're a first, second, or third day. And then I think it really just all depends on guys. Like if Johnny Wilson is considered a second day guy, I really think his stock doesn't get any higher. And that's not a disrespectful thing. It's just, what do first round wide receivers look like? And does he possess that? Is he a 4-5 or better guy? I don't really know. I just know it's very difficult to run that fast when you're freaking 6'7". It's not that he's not explosive or that he can't do it. It's just I can nerd out and give you the science behind it, but nobody wants to hear that. Just know it's very difficult to run that fast, but it's not that you're not fast. It's just that. But guys like Fabian Lovett, like, is Fabian Lovett going, if he comes back for another year, is his draft stock really going to change that much? He's probably a third-round guy at best, and that's probably where he's going to get projected at, especially if he has a good Senior Bowl. But I think what Mike has to do is go to the guys like your Akeem Dents, who maybe just wants to try to see what it's like because he's been here for so long. Try to convince them to stay another year. Go to your I think the wide receiver room is fine no matter what, just to put up. But go to a guy who is wild, because I think, Taylor, you're the one who predicted that Trey Benson would probably rush for 1,000 yards when we did our preseason show. But if a running back with as few carries as he has gets 1,000 yards, which is the holy grail of it, I don't know. Like, it's hard. Like, will he, like, and he'll probably do well at the combine. Will another 1,000-yard year help him? Of course. But running backs have a hit count, and you want to be able to take your chances. So, but I do think the biggest recruiting job that I think, Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune are 2 guys who I think will be coming back. But if Kalen goes and gets a high estimated pick, I mean, he may take his chances. So you just have to talk to the guys about what their overall goal is and what the bigger pick, and let them and visualize the bigger picture. The one that's going to be the most interesting is this, because everything revolves around this guy. It's Jordan Travis. I don't know if anybody's looked at the list. But Jordan Travis is like top 10 on a lot. Like, he's not number 7 in all like Power 5 guys with one list that came out. And that's like a really good list, and that's a huge jump for somebody like him. Coming back doesn't really help him. Doesn't help him to go head-to-head with Caleb Williams, Drake May. I'm trying to think of a few other guys. Or is he probably a 4th to 5th round guy? I don't know. But if he comes back, one thing we can say for sure is that Florida State will probably garner some points for votes to win the ACC next year. And I don't know, like, if I'm Mike, I'm definitely going to, like, what was the NCAA video game where they used to have, you could take recruiting points and put it toward keeping guys to say, I'm definitely putting some recruiting points to keeping Jordan Travis there. But if he doesn't, a kid that I would like to see is a kid who I thought we should have signed last year, and by the name of Austin Reed, who's at Western Kentucky. With Western Kentucky, he's lit it up there, but Western Kentucky is a part of that conference split, to where now he's not going to be playing against anybody. So if you get a kid like that, you get another year to let Duffy develop or whatever. You bring in my guy Luke Croman, who's rising up the charts out of Savannah. And, man, all of a sudden Florida State went from, oh, my God, what are we going to do, to, we look really, really good in comparison to our rivals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually did a Q&A with Croman Hawk a little bit earlier. I think it was yesterday afternoon. And I kind of talked to him about, the JT kind of dynamics and everything, about how he's having such a tremendous season, kind of looking at it as, okay, what is the message that Mike Norvell's kind of selling to you? And, it's all been kind of brought back to, it's built for playmakers. And he is a playmaker. He is a certified playmaker at this point. And when Florida State, when he got his services and everything to Florida State, he was uncommitted and unranked at this point. And, now we're at a 4-star prospect at this point. He's really elevated his game to a higher level. And I think fans kind of overreact in that certain guard. I think that Florida State does need to go after a quarterback at some point, whether it be recruiting or transfer portal, because I think the position is so important. But I just think everybody is kind of overreacting to that point of, okay, we have to get this guy or this guy or this guy when it may not be the right fit for us in terms of that. I mean, I love Austin Reed. I think he's a really good kid. I think he's a really good quarterback at that point. But did he really fit the style and scheme that we were going after in that regard? Because I think he's more of an air raid type of quarterback, and I think he could have been more successful in those kind of systems as we're seeing now. So I just don't know if you just kind of put all your eggs in one basket. But I do think Jordan Travis is that guy to make it Florida State to the next kind of appearance there. But he's going to be playing football for his 6th season. What do you have to gain from that? And that's kind of what you were alluding to before. I just don't know. That home slate is easy, but I just don't know.
I gotta rewind back to exactly what Taylor's talking about. So here's what I think matters the most, whether you get JT back or not. It's not about money. It's not about what round he goes in. What matters the most, in my opinion, is are the NFL teams going to look at JT and go, okay, we're not going to bring you in as a quarterback. We're going to slide you to the slot receiver position, or we're going to play you on special teams. So what does JT have to gain from coming back? Well, if all the NFL teams are telling you you're never going to take snaps in the NFL, in our opinion, or on our team, then what he would gain is come back and play one more year. You got 1 year left. Come back and be a quarterback one more time. Win the ACC title that you deserve. Possibly get into the playoffs as you deserve. Does it gain his stock draft to go up to be a quarterback the next year? I don't think so. But it sure the hell can't hurt if you come in and you do win the ACC and you do go into the playoffs and you commit something to it. But then you rewind it back to what Taylor was saying about and the fan. Johnny Wilson just signed with Rising Spear earlier this week or today or whatever it was. Look, I'm not going to tell you that by him signing with Rising Spear or NIL that he's going to stay, but I'm going to tell you that we're sure the hell going to try. We're going to try to get him to stay. I mean, you're not doing your due diligence as NIL at Florida State if you don't. Or think about it like this. Johnny Wilson's one of the only guys that's put up the amount of yards. He could be, like James said previously, that he's the one that's seeking the 1,000 yards in receiving. Well, how would it look if Florida State has a 1,000-yard receiver that doesn't have an NIL deal? Like, that has never had one. That it starts kind of like whether he leaves or stays. Like, if you go get 1,000 yards at Florida State, you don't get NIL deals. Like, that looks bad it just looks bad on us regardless. So let's make sure we get this kid a deal, whether he's on his way out the door or not. But I think quarterback-wise, we've got Chip down at the bottom that used to be a quarterback in college. So if you were told, Chip, let's say you're going to get drafted, but let's say that every NFL team comes to you and says, okay, we're going to take you in the draft, but we want to make you a slot receiver guy, or we want to make you a special teams guy, or whatever it is. Do you stick around for another year to play in college football your last year being a quarterback, or do you move on? Now, this doesn't mean that J-Trav's going to do it. I'm asking someone that has been a quarterback before, what are your feelings on that if someone tells you you're not playing a quarterback position in the NFL?
Well, I mean, it all depends on what is his draft stock. Like, James alluded to, if they're telling you you're going to be a third day if you come out this year, what's it going to hurt to come back another year and raise your draft stock? Yeah, so maybe they're saying you're not going to be a quarterback, but you put out more numbers and show your athleticism even more, it's not going to hurt anything. Now, do I see J-Trav being able to play quarterback at the next level? Yes, because the NFL game is not as stubborn as it used to be. They've evolved now and allow the RPO game, where I believe if like when Chris Ricks came up, Chris Ricks was an RPO quarterback, and that's when it was first, when we were first getting our taste of the athletic quarterback. I think he would have fared a lot better. I'm not going to say Tim Tebow would have fared better, because we all know he should have been playing, the Taysom Hill role you see now. It's I would love to have J Trav come back. I think J Trav needs another year under Norvell to show. I mean, we all saw him do great things this year, but he still had those few plays where you're like, what are you thinking? What are you reading? He needs another off season for his touch throws, fate balls in the end zone with Coach Bowden. He called them alley-oops. They were his jump balls. You give your athletic guys. I mean, he needs another year with Micah, with Johnny, with our receivers. Now we need to see what we have in AJ, and we know what we have in Tate. We have, Tate's a reliable, can step in and play, but J Trav is the superstar quarterback. We've got to find who's going to be the next signal caller for the Noles after J Trav. But I want J Trav to come back one more year because, just as a fan, I'm selfish. I want to see him with an ACC championship win. I'd love to see him get us in the playoffs and see what we can do.
I will say this, and you look at some of the draft eligible quarterbacks this season. You got Bryce Young, okay. CJ Stroud from Ohio State, okay. And then there's a drop-off. Will Levis from Kentucky. He has struggled this season. They have kind of fell off the face of the earth now at this point. Tanner McKee from Stanford is kind of next on that list. Anthony Richardson from Florida, very inconsistent. Hendon Hooker, while talented, he's very old. There's just a lot of question marks. I mean, the next guy on that list, KJ Jefferson from Arkansas. I mean, there's not a whole lot there. Maybe Tyler Van Dyke has draft eligibility and goes. There's not a whole lot there. And it's just, when you're looking at just the guys in this draft past the top two, you're looking at it and saying, well, Jordan might actually have a debate in what he can be and where he can be placed. So I'm not saying it's out of the ordinary, but I mean, when you're looking at that list of quarterbacks and you're saying, man, I can't be better than at least 4 or 5 of those guys, I mean, that's doable.
But a lot of what it is in the NFL is what team drafts you.
Yep.
You can be the best quarterback in the draft and the wrong team draft you, and unless something lucks out where you can get traded or, and resurge your career somewhere else, your career is over with. Because, I mean, look at David Carr. David Carr, the year he came out in the draft, was like the hot prospect. You watched him in college and you're like, this kid's got it. He went to the Texans when they first came out, and the kid was beat to death by his 3rd year.
All these are really good points. That's why I like having the show. I like hearing rather like, is this guy best to stay? Is he best to go? Like, luckily, I'm not the guy telling him to stay, because I tell all of them to stay because I want to win as Florida State goes. Because the only thing that I care for the NFL for is that the guys that I care about in college go get paid. I don't care for NFL football. I don't care to watch these NFL teams go back and forth with each other. Hell, now you have to tackle a quarterback in a strike zone. I mean, we literally call it a strike zone in the NFL now. Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, all these targeting calls, all this BS. So then you get those penalties. Then if you hit a wide receiver after he takes 2 steps, you're clear. But if he only took 1 step, he's defenseless. What the okay. So now we can't hit people. Let's just put flags on them and snatch flags off of them, because we might as well be playing flag football at this point. But we've got this new stuff coming out, which isn't very new, but you've got USFL. I don't see a lot of penalties in those games. You got XFL coming back this year. I think it's going to be a hell of a lot dirtier than the NFL. And I might be interested in pro football again. But I'm not going to be interested in the NFL, because even the Canadian Football League doesn't throw penalty flags like the NFL does. I'm seeing quarterbacks completely get their heads taken off. There's no penalty. It's just the game. Like, they're playing old school football still. Maybe it's a little bit lesser talent. Maybe not, because I was impressed with what the USFL did last year. I thought there was decent talent on the team. I'm not the only one because the NFL started pulling people up from the USFL. I think there was 13 in total that the NFL called up to bring into the NFL. So obviously that there's some room for more leagues to happen in the United States and beyond. But hell, we've got NFL teams. I will say this: I watch these games. When the Jaguars go to London, I watch it. When the Bucks just went to Germany, I watched it. I'm not a fan of the Jaguars or the Bucks, but to see American football showcased in a different country, regardless of who's doing it, I want to see it. I think it means something. I think we're going to start seeing more and more games in different countries. I think more and more people are going to adopt Americanized football because this show gets watched by a hell of a lot of Australians. And I think that's partially because we've got a punter from Australia, and they love hearing about Florida State football. But Australia's got kickers. I mean, that's obvious. Almost every college football team at this point's got a Australian kicker. At some point, either they're coming up or they're already there. So for all these countries to start adopting American football, it just makes us continuously grow. Like James Wilder Jr. is one of my favorite players of all time, just because I thought the guy was one of the purest-hearted people I ever met, and he runs hard as hell no matter where he's at. He's in the Canadian Football League playing for the Elks. Nothing shows me that he shouldn't be in the NFL because he was better than about 75% of them the year that he came out. But because of who was in front of him, like Devontae Freeman, Patrick went out a year or so, whatever it was, but he was lost in the realm of all the running backs that came through. So he had to settle for going to the Canadian Football League. But he is a Florida State athlete, and he built his brand in Canada probably better than any other American football player that I've seen, because his reach in Canada right now is absolutely amazing. He came back over to the United States to do a camp with a couple of his Florida State former teammates, and it was absolutely a ball. Like, everybody had a blast. He was really teaching guys a lot of good stuff. So I personally follow wherever the Florida State guys go. Like, I'm pissed off that I haven't seen Jameis Winston play this year. Not because Jameis Winston is the greatest football player of all time, but because I think he deserves a shot on a real team, whereas the Bucs didn't give him the greatest shot in the world. They go and buy, a better defense, a better offensive weapons and definitely a better offensive line at the time for who's considered the GOAT. Well, what would Jameis Winston do behind an offensive line that he had? What would he do with the weapons that were given to Tom Brady? So, me personally, I think that Florida State guys get a lot of bad shake when they go in the NFL. We got James sitting up in the top right corner. He went into the NFL with the Saints for a year, and I've got to hear the story. I've got to hear exactly what that process is, and it's not like the player has any control on who drafts them. It's not like they can say, no, I want to go here, and it's just going to happen. I think Eli's the only one that successfully ever done that. But Eli was a Manning, and Eli had whatever you want to say. Eli could pull it off. If you're not the Elis and the Peytons of the world, you can't say, no, I don't want to go to the Chargers. I want to go to the New York Giants. And then that actually happened. So depending, like what I'm realming this up to is what Chip just said. If you get drafted by the wrong team, which in my opinion, James got drafted by the wrong team. I don't think Devontae Freeman went to the right team to start with. I don't think that I think the only one that's gotten it right so far is Dalvin Cook fits the system of what the Minnesota Vikings do. But there's a lot of guys that went into a system that it just doesn't fit. You've got old school coaches with new school players. You've got new school coaches with old school players. And it's everybody goes after that stock. It's the hype around it. Like, why did the Buccaneers go after Jameis so fast? Because they had the first round pick. They wanted to pick the guy that's on the top. It makes their draft look like they did something right. But I personally think that Jameis Winston would have been better if he'd have went damn near anywhere else. almost anywhere else, he would have been a better fit for what they had. But regardless, it's not how it works. That's why I think that it's so important for us to have the XFLs, the USFLs, so that they can gain, like, look what I can do under this system, and the NFL goes, or each team in the NFL goes, he fits that system. We can bring him in, and he's at least, a year two guy that we can bring in and be a full-time starter. I don't think that the NFL gets to see enough out of these guys in college because of the systems that are in place. Now the NFL is starting to turn into more of the college look, more of the spread offense, more of the RPO style than what we used to run the ball. Like James says, like we give the ball to the damn fullback. There's a spot for that still. That still needs to be happening. But we don't see the I formation a whole lot. We don't see a fullback a whole lot anymore. So if you're not going to run power football all the time, you're going to see spread. Well, the college fits that. It fits what we're doing now in the NFL. But you got some old school coaches that it doesn't matter how good you are. You're just shut out of luck. It doesn't matter how great you are. But we've got about 9 minutes left. I know James has got his event that he's doing. James, you got any final thoughts before you go?
Nah, man. Just appreciate everybody. Let's try to pack Doak. I know it's a noon game. Those aren't fun. It's going to be a little cool outside. Just get your coat. It'll warm up by the second quarter. Go out there, support these boys, and let's everybody have a great holiday week coming up. I appreciate everybody, and go Noles.
Appreciate it, James. Taylor, what are your final thoughts on maybe some of the conversations we had with Johnny Wilson? I agree, personally. So I agree that Johnny Wilson just signed the deal. And I can see it from both directions. That's why I tried to explain it like I think we would look completely incompetent if we didn't give him one. But what are your thoughts?
So the biggest thing, we talked about Jordan Travis, about going to the NFL and doing different things like that. But you also have to understand, too, that he's probably going to miss 4 of his 5 starting offensive linemen with Scott, Gibbons, Turntine, and also with Emmanuel. That's 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen. And I get that we signed 6 offensive linemen, technically 5 because Woody moved over to the defensive tackle spot. We've got guys coming in, and, of course, Atkins is probably going to get another guy along with Lucas Simmons and probably 2 other transfers to kind of bring in, solidify that depth. But, I mean, we talk about just as much with Jordan Travis. What about Robert Scott going pro? I mean, right. If he goes second round, somewhere around that range, maybe even early third or late first, just kind of depending on his skill set and how he kind of finishes the rest of the year, he kind of has some decisions to make. So really, when you think about it and you're looking at it as a Jordan Travis guy and saying, well, 4 of my 5 offensive linemen aren't there, I need some help, and I didn't get it the last couple of years at Florida State. I finally got it this season, and I'm having to take a step back. I just don't know if you put that in front of him and just say, here you go, here's 4 offensive linemen that are brand new to you, kind of make things work, and maybe he's like, man, I just really want to test out the NFL at this point. I'm getting too old for this. I don't want to break my back, getting sacked so many times. You got a situation there where it's a good situation this year. The offensive linemen's played pretty well. They've only allowed 13 sacks on the year. So really, when you look at that as an offensive lineman kind of guy there, you just look at that and say, okay, well, this might be my last year coming out of this.
And again, I completely agree with if you're sitting back and you're looking at it as Jordan Travis, I can agree 100%. If I'm losing 4 of my 5, I don't know. Not stating that our offensive line's not going to be, maybe it doesn't fall off hardly at all, but that's unproven. Does a quarterback want to go into an unproven situation and see where this goes? I don't know that he says yes either, because this would be his 6th year if he goes back. So it just depends on what JT's feeling. And does Robert Scott say, I'm going to stay 1 more year and gain my draft stock? I mean, all of those things matter. Do I think if one offensive lineman comes back, he says yes? No, I don't. But I also think that it really does matter where he could be going, who he would be playing for, what position is he going to play. Will depend on whether Jordan Travis comes back or not. But we cannot ignore the fact that earlier this year, JT said This is my last go at it.
Mhm.
This is my last year. And JT doesn't swing away from what he says most of the time. So his mind might have been set up at the end of last year that he knew this is my last year. No matter how good or bad this goes, I'm not doing this again. And that might be just it. But
Yeah,
it could
James
be.
talked about it. I mean, NIL can only do so much. I mean,
It can't block for you. That's
No.
for sure. It
no,
can't. So
you don't want to turn into a Matt Castle or not a Matt Castle. Who was the USC quarterback that came back another year and absolutely Matt Barkley.
yeah,
And
Yep.
talking about that, and he just it was supposed to be a better season for him. He was supposed to be the consensus number 1 pick in the draft. Turn around, come back for a next season, and look at it. He got drafted in the 4th round. So
Yep.
Got to look at who drafted him. He went to the Eagles, who
Yep.
ran a totally offense than what he ever ran.
yep.
But Chris, what I wanted to bring in, I'm going to bring in an example of one that came back and it helped, and one that came back and it hurt. One that came back and helped was Kenny Pickett. Him coming back and playing that one more year to show that he could pick up whatever offense after that he and made the strides to improve. He got drafted in the 1st round by the Steelers. Now, one that came back and it hurt, Jordan Love. His numbers were a tremendous drop off from his junior to his senior year.
yeah.
And I mean, granted, yes, he still got drafted in the 1st round behind the Packers,
Shouldn't
but
have.
he was playing in front of Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Well, guys, I do appreciate everybody coming on. I've got 4 minutes left. I hope I allowed everybody to get their points out. If not, join us for the next show Monday. I'll do this after y'all leave. Y'all can find Chip at Unconquered 850 on Facebook. You can also find him at Chip Wesley 9 on Twitter and also Instagram. Taylor, you can find at Norvell Central on Instagram, Central Norvell on Twitter. And please go check out Taylor's YouTube channel. He does actually do videos other than our podcast.
Yeah.
So please go check it out. Give him a watch. He breaks down, does some analytical things that he goes into more depth. Please go check that out. Also, we are both SeatGeek ambassadors. If you're having trouble finding seats to the Florida game, which everybody should be, there are a couple up on SeatGeek the last time that I looked. Use either one of our promo codes, as in Norvell Central or Spearatics in all caps, and get an extra $20 off of your purchase. If that's it, guys, I appreciate y'all coming on. I'm going to try to finish these announcements in 3 minutes.
All right.
Everybody, I hope that you were entertained in this show tonight. I think it did. I think we got to cover a lot. I didn't really plan on covering whether JT was coming back or not, but that's why I love doing this show. I think that it allows us to speak freely on what our thought process is, and the Johnny Wilsons and everybody else, whether they stay or go. Regardless, I think Norvell and the staff's doing a great job with this team. I think we don't do anything besides grow from here. I think we get better and better as years come, regardless of who stays and regardless of who goes. Next week, we have the Florida State-Florida tailgate. We are teamed up with the Roll Up Network. That's CJ that covers the Florida State side, and Silk covers the Florida side. This will be a both team tailgate, but everybody promises to be on their best behavior as always. We've never had problems doing these before. And James obviously will also be there. This is his lot 19. Come. There'll be former athletes. There'll be current athletes. The tickets are for sale. We've got the links up all over the place. If you want to come join the greatest Florida State-Florida tailgate that's going to be around, come and join us and have a great time. I appreciate everybody for coming and sharing their thoughts. I appreciate your score predictions. I appreciate everybody that supports Spearatics by Sideline Sports Network. We will be making some huge announcements coming in the next few days. Monday, we have a huge announcement on a partnership, and we've got more to come. Everybody have a good one. This is Chris Frazier with Spearatics by Sideline Sports Network. I am your host. Come and see us Monday at 7:30. Y'all have a good one. And